What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. The Hounds just got a massive 3 points at home against Rhode Island and are now back in the playoff picture for the first time in forever. I don't know. Were we ever in the playoff picture? I guess we'll discuss that. But as always, that definitely earns a very much deserved let's go! I think I threw my back out on that one. I am so old. Josh, quick, give us a victory beverage so I can stretch my back out.
There we go.
There we go.
That's amazing. All around.
You went below, like you went to go down and said you're usually going to the left or the right when you like fall off camera. I'm like, no, he just is going down. And I was like, oh, that looks like painful.
Yeah. I won't do that again. Oh man.
When you popped back up while the video was going, you were just like,
Ow.
Yeah. Here's a little inside baseball for all of you. Oi, Steve, how's your weekend been, man?
Good. I was up in Tynesta area today. Original plan was go up much further and paddle down the Allegheny, but because of the weather and whatnot, we just paddled the length of Tynesta Lake. So great, awesome paddle. It was a bit windy at first. But great. I also went kayaking on Thursday out at Glade Run Lake, and that was a much more adventurous kayak because got like into these like really thick lily pad growths on the surface, and I guess Rory decided that he wanted to get on land and didn't realize that was not land. So he jumped right in the water, and then he's flailing about. I'm like trying to grab the handle on his life vest, but he's trying to like swim away and try to like figure out how to get somewhere. So this one, no incidents, but great to get out on the water while the weather's still kind of nice.
It feels like after Pedal Pittsburgh, you're just like getting in all the activities, trying to cram them in before the weather gets bad.
Yeah. And then as soon as it gets even a little cooler, get even more hikes in. So once I can't get out on the water. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Josh,
glad to be able to do other things. Yeah.
For sure. Josh, you've been hitting up, it feels like every concert that comes to town, which good for you. What's been the highlights the past few weeks?
I would say so. We went to the Green Day concert. I don't think I talked about it on here. It was really fun, but we got there and we had field seats, and as we're like getting to our seats, we realized they're not there. Like the numbers, like our row's there, but our seat numbers are not there. It's like we have seat number 26 and 25, and like it only goes to 22, and so like, and they're just like folding chairs. Like it's not like it's like real seats. So I was like, we looked at the guy, and like the guy behind us, he was sitting there, and he was like filling us in. He's like, yeah, I got here earlier, and they didn't put enough rows out. Like there's not enough seats in each row. It's the whole section. And like he's like, I told him, the guy figured this out before the concert starts, but like they're just like, don't worry about it. Like just sit where you can, and then like if it fills in all the way, then we'll worry about it. It's like, no, because it'll be the concert. So like as we're trying to figure out like what's going on, and like the Linda's already playing, and then Rancid starts playing, and we still don't have it figured out. Steel Army member who's a good friend of every, like if you've been to Riverhounds games for a long time, he works for the same company that does the venue stuff, so he came over and helped us out, like got it straightened out, and we ended up in the pit. So instead of being on the field, we got upgraded to the pit. And yeah, that was pretty cool. So awesome. Second time being in the pit for a Green Day concert at PNC. The first time they were here, not first, but last time they were here was for the Hella Mega Tour with Fall Out Boy and the Used and Weezer. We were in the pit for that, so it was cool to be in the pit again. We were in it for Smashing Pumpkins and for Green Day because Rancid and Linda's had already played. And yeah, so it was great night.
That's awesome.
Nice.
How was the Pumpkins and Green Day?
I was not like a huge Smashing Pumpkins. Like I liked a couple of their albums like growing up and like in high school and that kind of stuff. But like I wasn't looking forward to seeing them live. I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to see Smashing Pumpkins. But honestly, they did a really good job. And like Billy Corgan, like from afar, seeing him, I always think he looks like a jerk. Like he always seems like very much like in his own head and like really artsy fartsy like type. And like I wouldn't imagine him like caring about the concert and being like, we're playing our music what we want to play, and like I don't care if you're listening to it or not. But he was a really nice guy. So like the bar was really low. I was like, this guy's gonna be a pompous jerk. And then like he came on, he's like, thank you everyone for coming. This is so exciting. I can't believe like seeing everything. Like, and I was just like, oh, okay, he's a human being. He's actually pretty nice. And then I started like following him on TikTok and like seeing some of his stuff, and like he pokes fun of himself all the time. And like he had like a TikTok where he's wearing the pirate hat, like the one that the flat cap one, looking one. So I was like, okay, all right, I like this guy. So yeah, that was good. And then since it was the anniversary tour for Dookie and for for American Idiot, they played all of Dookie and then all of American Idiot. Green Day did.
Wow.
So being
That's a
able to
lot.
like,
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, and in between they threw in songs from their new album and from like
Nice.
their other hits and that kind of stuff. So it was a long set for Green Day, and they had like a complete set change between albums.
Mhm.
So like the whole stage looked like the cover of Dookie, and then like when it got to American Idiot, like the heart with the fist grenade and all that kind of stuff came up. Like a giant balloon version of it. They flew the plane, it was like a blow up plane with like they just had it up with ropes, pretty much like holding it in like a helium plane. It was like the Dookie plane, and it was dropping just like little balloons that said Dookie on it, like the bombs on the cover. So across the crowd. So
that's cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, they get Green Day. I've seen them live probably like 4 times, and they're always fun. Like they always bring a great performance. So I was looking forward to that.
I just had a conversation with my kids. It might have been this weekend where I don't know if it was American Idiot that came on. There was something. There was one of their songs that came on from that album. And I was trying to explain to them that felt to me, there was a moment where it seemed like not that albums had kind of faded out a little bit, but that was one album that I remember when it came out, it felt like everybody went and bought. And like from start to finish, you would just listen to it because it just... every song was just a banger. And literally I was driving around, I think yesterday, and somehow I got on, like I played one song and then started suggesting songs, and 4 or 5 of them were from American Idiot. And I was like, holy crap. Like I need to go back and listen to this whole thing start to finish again. It's so good.
Not to nerd out about a little bit, but like in American Idiot is the album that one kind of going off what you're talking about is it was post, iTunes and Napster and all that kind of stuff. And like people were just listening to songs, basically. They weren't listening to albums. Yeah. And it was a concept album. So it had like a story from start to end if you listen to the album. And it's like a rock opera type thing. But also what's really cool about that album is they were recording a different album and the masters got stolen. And so like they're like, well, we had this time in the studio and like our masters just got stolen like pretty early on. So like we had to come up with a completely new album. And they make American Idiot. It's like, are you serious? That was like, well, we don't know what to do. Let's just make a concept album.
I had no idea that was the story behind it. That's awesome. That is so cool.
Super cool.
Boy. Yeah. Well, good.
Mike,
I'm glad you guys. Yeah. What's up, Steve?
What'd you do this weekend?
Yeah.
Tell us about your weekend.
What did I do this weekend? It's funny because now that the guys are playing soccer, it feels like we get to Saturday and we just crash hard. So like all day Saturday is kind of recovering from the week because there are some cases where we're playing 2 to 3 games a week. We're traveling as far as I think we played Seneca Valley, which is like an hour and a half away through the tunnels, past Highmark Stadium. And to play a game there at 7:30 at night, you play for 2 hours and then you have to drive back. And then basically the kids have to get up at 5:45 the next morning and get on the bus and go to school. It's rough. So we were pretty wiped out. But otherwise just doing a few projects. We came back towards Pittsburgh today and spent some time with my parents. My mom had knee surgery a few weeks ago. And so she's like up walking around feeling great. So it was good just to get a little bit of time with her. But our weekends have been much more low key. since we've gotten back to school and soccer and all that, because it's just our weeks are completely insane. So we're looking forward to it. It feels like the season just started. It probably started like 2 weeks ago. We're looking forward to the season like winding down so that we get back to just some level of like, okay, like you go to school, you come home, there might be a few things here and there, but it's not our entire life is driving an hour away for games or whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, that and watching the Hounds, man, that game last night, holy crap. Like, you know, I think we talked about on the prediction show that, you know, Justin said that this is a have to win. I think we were all feeling pretty good. I talked to, you know, the guys from Tide Talk and especially all the fans in Rhode Island. Like while I was on that show, I felt like, oh crap, like everybody's predicting a Rhode Island win. I'm going to be the boogeyman here, predict the Hounds win. But I felt pretty good about it. Let's get into it, guys. So the Hounds win 2-0. Josh, you were, you know, behind the net on camera for many parts of the game. Give us a takeaway here. What were your thoughts?
Happy accident there. So I get into the stadium like right when the game starts because I sell merch for the Steel Army during tailgate. So usually I try to close down shop pretty late because there's a lot of people who don't tailgate who would just be walking by going to the game. They just got there. They're like, oh, cool. Do you have that scarf or do you have this? And so the longer I stay, the more I'm likely to get some, you know, straggler sales. So I usually close down shop and then like I'm already over there and the game's already almost started or like they're doing the national anthem and all that kind of stuff. Which speaking of, we also had a TIFO for this game. You should be seeing some pictures of it here shortly. The Rhode Island photographer actually took some really great photos of it because they were over on the Steel Army side of the field. So they took photos and then we got their information. They're going to send us photos. Nice. But yeah, it was Mac Miller themed and it was a great one. I really like the design of this one. I already got some requests to make it into a shirt.
Nice.
But anyway, so I get into the stadium and I'm like already over there and I see that like, you know, we're attacking on that end anyway. So I was like, I'm just gonna stay over here. It's cold and like there's no sun, so like I could have gone over to the other section and fine. Usually I try to stay over there because like the sun's blaring in my eyes, I can't see. So I'm just gonna hang out over here. So I just happened to be right by the goal, and you know I was about ready to head over because I'm like, oh, it's almost halftime. I'm gonna start heading over and do the other half by the Steel Army side. And yeah, I'm glad I didn't because it was right in front of me. And I saw it coming. I'm like, well, that's going to be good. And then yeah. First off, how do we say Burton's last name?
Jackson.
I've heard Jackson. I've heard Jackson, which I think is wrong, but
it's not Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah, he is French. I'm going to confirm with Grubba, and I'm hoping to potentially talk to Burton this week. So we will get like the definitive pronunciation. But what I've heard from multiple outlets is Burton Jackson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was an awesome goal. Like, and I'm so happy that he got that his first game.
Yeah.
And got assist. Like, I don't know. Like, can't really ask for a better starting game for him. But yeah, being on that side of the field, watching that go in, and being on that side of the goal that he kicked it from. It was awesome. And him running over to the flag and just like kicking it over. I was just like, all right, that was uncalled for, but cool.
We were talking a little bit in our Mongol Slack at that moment where I had literally started writing in my notebook because I still kind of like keep notes old school in like a notebook with a pen. And I started writing like halftime thoughts. Okay. Like, you know, not a ton happening, not a lot of chances either way. And literally Griffin picks up the ball and slots it through and Jackson just rifles it. And literally it was just like, oh, wow. Like, okay. was not ready for that. But Steve, I think your point was good things happen when Griffin's further up the field, which we did not think was going to be the case. So
no, I mean, I saw that lineup and I'm like, only 2 natural center backs in this game. What are we doing? Okay. Like, and because I did just like, who else is playing as a wing back if Rovy's in, and we don't have Etu and Blackstock in the lineup. So I assumed it was Rovy and Biasi playing wing backs with Griffin dropping back. And that wasn't the case. And then great goal. But I mean, watching the goal in real time, I was like, what a pass by Griffin. Watching it back on some of the replays later in the broadcast, when you see it from a different angle and you see that he had options, because he had a clear line to also put it right to the 12-yard mark for Mertz, but he had a lot more guys around him. And I mean, the decision making on that to see Burton open and to get the ball to him and the defenders like to be like right through the lane between the defenders was just fantastic vision. And that's what I love to see. I mean, and it wasn't Danny's only involvement offensively. I mean, he had that little flick a little bit later that he didn't get enough power on, but it was like you saw him when he was more attacking last night. Just great, right? Like he just looked so good up front.
Yeah. It was interesting because if you actually go back and look at the stats, technically we had 2 goals in the 50th minute because Jogason's goal was 5 minutes of stoppage time from the first half. Mm-hmm. And then we scored in the 50th minute of the second half with Sample's flick. So that, I wonder if that's, I'm sure it happened before. I don't know if that's happened before in Hounds history, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sample didn't score it earlier. Then we could have had the first goal after the second goal.
Oh, that would be
that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. Steve, give me another takeaway from this one.
I mean, defensive and midfield dominance all night long. That's not to say that Rhode Island didn't look like they could be dangerous. I mean, they played and they played well, I thought, but I mean, it took well into the second half before they even got any shots that counted. I mean, Dequa had the one off the post, but it was called offside before that anyway, so it wouldn't have counted. But I mean, we just smothered them and had some scrambling defensive efforts as well, but came up big. I mean, we were joking, right? Like, is Dick going to get man of the match without having made a save? And kind of like, because that's happened before, right? But I say that to say he was instrumental in cutting out passes and smothering some balls that could have been extremely dangerous at times. And so he kept them from getting on the end of some balls that probably would have been goals. So even though no saves, another monster game by him, I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, technically, I think that Rhode Island did not register a shot on net. They had some shots, but they were blocked. Yeah. Monster performance. And it just harkens back. I think the announcers made reference to it as well, how shutouts are really a team effort. So even though, Dick will get credit for the shutout, when I talked to Eric Dick 2 weeks ago, he was very quick to say, like, no. Like, so much of this is what happens before it even gets to me. And that was absolutely the case here. To take a team like Rhode Island, who were in the position that they were, at least in terms of the playoffs at the time, and, basically had gone, I think it was 8 games with only 1 loss. Like, they were on a bit of a tear as well. And to hold them to 0 shots on net, that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Kind of going along with that. Well, one, about the whole, shutout thing. That's like the hallmark of a Lily team. Like, we've always talked about this, how like every single year it feels like we have a keeper who is, in the Golden Glove running, and it doesn't matter what keeper we have. Really, like, we've had good keepers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we haven't, but it's like the Lily system just makes it so the keeper is almost like a, whoever you throw in there, it's such a complete team effort to keep the ball away from them that it just works out that they're always like Golden Glove, in the running at least, which now Dick is in the running for Golden Glove. I think he is now, is he more shutouts than
tied? Three-way tie with 11 shutouts for Dick, Vitiello, and Rios Novo from Phoenix.
Yeah. So here we go again. Like, especially this season when you're like, oh man, we're not doing great this season. It's like we have someone in the running for Golden Glove. That's crazy. And then also going back to another thought about this, as far as Rhode Island goes, Dequa who? Like that, like he was, I think I was reading, actually, I think I pulled it up. Yeah. So USL Tactics, he writes for Backheel. He does his like standings, his, what do you call it? Power rankings. And I read his thing about Rhode Island. Back at Highmark Stadium, his home in a Golden Boot winning 2023, Dikwa took a modest 34 touches and didn't attempt a single shot. His invisibility encapsulated Rhode Island struggles. So yeah, like I hate to read that. I'm lying. That was really fun to read.
I don't know if you guys heard on the prediction show, but I had mentioned that when I was on Tide Talk, it was really funny to me because we were talking about Dikwa, and I specifically mentioned to them, like, I get it. Like, I get why you guys brought him in, but obviously, he had, I think, 7 goals on the season so far after 20 last year. And it was just funny to me, the number of comments that came flying in. Like, how do we get Dikwa to get more goals? Like, what kind of systems should we run? What did you guys do? And I was just like, it was largely kind of Lily's system. And we had said that Dikwa was very much a poacher in a lot of ways. And how when he was here, and this was sort of seconded by a lot of the Hounds players that we've talked to, that a lot of the goals that Dikwa got were almost pure Dikwa. It was not the team getting involved in the way that the team wanted to get involved. And we had talked about this, where so many times Dikwa was scoring these great individual efforts, but we didn't have anybody there to back him up. And so it was always our concern that if Dikwa was gone, where were the goals going to come from? And it seems like the reaction to that this season has been, let's try to get more guys in the box. Let's try to get more guys streaking forward so that you're not just relying on one player. And we're starting to see the fruit of that, I'll say. But yeah, I mean, I will say, I can't remember, Steve, if it was you or somebody else. I mean, Dikwa looked good. Like, he looked like he put on some muscle. I mean, he looked like he was in good spirits. The one time he got hurt, it was funny because you could see the guys on the sideline, the trainers, like, clearly they're familiar with each other and they were laughing and making sure he was okay. So I wish all the best for him, but I'm glad it wasn't in this game and that we were able to really hold him to nothing. It kind of gets back to...
I mean, I do want to point something out, though, with that. Dikwa converted basically a third of his shots into goals last year. Right? He had 20 goals, 61 shots all season. This year, he's got 7 goals, but he's taken 35 shots. And so already he's well below that conversion rate. And so, I mean, yeah, system makes a big difference. But I wonder what is different for him this year. Is it the quality of chances that he's getting, whereas in the Hound system last year? Or did he just have an awesome year last year and he's struggling to make the impact this year? Or is he pressing so much because he feels he needs to be scoring those goals, and Rhode Island hasn't been scoring, especially at the beginning of the season, hadn't been scoring those goals, so he was taking less quality chances, right? But I do think that's a big part of it, that Bob's philosophy is high quality chances and has been for years. And we've seen that in terms of, like, the Hounds generally under Bob have been one of the most efficient goal scoring teams. Even if they're not scoring a lot of goals, when they are scoring, it's high quality chances out of not as many shots as some other teams. And we've talked about that. Like, I want to see more shots.
Yeah, they convert on the chances they take. We wish they would take more shots.
Yep.
Yeah. Agreed. Steve, back to your point about sort of the lineup a little bit. When we said we were originally thinking Griffin was going to be back at center back, that wasn't the case, because instead of Griffin, it was Jackson Walty. And for a hot minute, I was thinking that part of the reason why they put Jackson Walty back on defense was not to play defense, but was to basically shadow Dikwa, a la, who was it, Rovey and Tyler Pasher a few years ago. That wasn't exactly the case. Yeah, go ahead, take a drink. That wasn't exactly the case. It was sort of early in the game, but then it seemed like Walty kind of settled into a bit of an outside back, center back kind of position. What was interesting with that was that it felt like at times it gave Biasi the freedom to streak forward from that central defender position, which was really interesting, because I just talked to him this week and I said, which would you prefer? Would you rather be a center back or a winger? And he said he loves getting forward. He loves doing that thing. If he can streak forward from the center back position, that feels very similar to what we saw last year with Neto Santos at times, where he clearly was the third center back, but he would still streak forward. And what that meant was that there were times in this game where Biasi would step forward and he would beat the first player, but then none of the other guys from Rhode Island would step into him because they just assumed that a pass was coming. And so they would just hold their position. And that allows him to get further forward, to get numbers forward, and to make stuff happen. And so it'll be very interesting to see if that is something that we continue to do, as use Walty. I mean, whether or not we use Walty in that way once Pat Hogan comes back, who knows? But if we're giving our center backs the freedom to streak forward like that because we feel we have adequate coverage, that is a very dangerous proposition for other teams to deal with.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah. Definitely thought both Biasi and Walty had very good games. Josh, give us another thought from this one.
I mean, I feel like you gotta talk about that second goal as well. Especially I did not expect a chip header like that was. Just I don't know if he had any intention of that being a goal.
Say, did Bradley expect it?
I don't think so. But that's okay. That's okay. Because when he did that header, I'm sure he was trying to cross it in the box and just get it into, the mess of players. But just watching it chip the keeper, I'm like, that's hilarious. Like I can't remember ever really seeing that type of play. It was a fluke goal, but I'm not gonna complain. So
it felt very apropos when I was talking to him 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'd mentioned, I was like, dude, the goal's coming, because we had seen him rip some shots.
Oh yeah.
I never would have guessed that his first goal would have came from his header, but considering all of the reference to lettuce and his flowing locks, it just makes sense. So good
Robbie
on him
Mertz,
for the
take
flavor.
notes. I need to do a header this year. It's been a couple years running now that I've been calling for a Mertz header goal, and that could have been yours. That you could have done that header.
That's right. Listen, Robbie was too busy fighting off all of their team. So,
oh my god, when that fight broke out, I was like, dude, Mertz is going to take them all. He was like a little Wolverine over there. Comics accurate size for Wolverine.
That's right.
Get in a fight over there.
I mean, there's absolutely a discussion to be had here. We were talking about this a little bit in the chat. Steve, I want your thoughts on this. But essentially what had happened was, it was a little bit later in the game. Mertz had chased the ball down to the end line, was trying to keep it in, sort of fell over the ball, had 2 Rhode Island players on top of him. One of them started to kick the ball while it was in Robbie's legs, and then one of them literally, it was Karifa Yao, literally shoved Mertz to the ground, while he's sitting on the ground,
kept his hand on him too,
and kept his hand on him. And so the ref called nothing, and so Robbie basically grabs Karifa's leg and then stands up. I mean, he's up to the guy's shoulders essentially, and then the two of them are holding each other's shirts, and everybody has to break them up. Steve, you had some thoughts about this whole exchange. Where do you stand on this?
I mean, the ref needs to blow the whistle as soon as the hand goes on Mertz to push him down, if not before that. But at that point, the ref has lost control of that situation entirely. And so I think, does Robbie deserve a yellow card for the next couple of actions? Absolutely not. But he gets called for the foul, and then he's, ticked off, and he gets in their faces and grabs them by the shirt, right? I'm taking that yellow card every single day, right? I made mention of another yellow card that I think is the perfectly legitimate yellow card that I'm happy to have seen, and that was Biasi's in Cincinnati last year, where he pulled the guy down right at midfield, and
WWE style.
And after the game, we're down there talking to the players, and I just gave him a hug, and it was professional effing foul, right? Biasi. That's what I wanted to say to Mertz. That's the foul I want you to make and take the yellow card for, right? Absolutely do that. My biggest thing with that situation is this is where I'm going to call out Danny again, that as the captain, he needs to be in the ref's face in those situations and just getting the ref to rethink things. It's not going to change anything in that moment, but that's what I want to see from him, is being vocal with the refs and saying, look, he's pushing Robbie down. Why are you not blowing the whistle earlier, right? Because that changes things over time for the team.
Right. It's one of those things where if the ref had blown the whistle as Robbie got pushed down, then Robbie may have not retaliated, and you wouldn't have ended up with a yellow card for Robbie. And so it was the case where I think we were saying, if the ref stood up for Robbie and Robbie still got a yellow, then I might be bring it back a bit. But if the ref's not going to stand up for you in that moment where you're physically being abused, then yeah, like I'm gonna support Robbie. If that was his second yellow, I'd be like, oh man, not good. But if that's the case, like yeah, man, you got to stand up for yourself a little bit there. You can't just take that. So
I think Drew put something in the chat. Mondo said, yeah, from my vantage, I also watched the linesman call for a foul for the Hounds, but the main official gave the ball to Rhode Island. Both Rhode Island players deserved a yellow. Yeah. It was weird because it did look like the linesman was right there, like just watching it go down, and it seemed like he was on the Hound side of it all. And it's just, yeah, I'm not surprised he got the yellow for what he did after the play was called, but it was definitely a situation where it should have been whistled way earlier. And it was fun though, watching Robbie basically take on the whole team. And just like, no, I'm just going for it. So
we had some like quasi wagers of like, is Robbie just going to keep going? And my reaction was, I think Robbie like is intelligent enough to sort of bring it down for the rest of the game and not cost the team. But we very easily could have seen him, like 2-footed high kick somebody in the face at the same time too. Because, that would just have been amazing.
No one goes full Romeo Parks. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Go full Romeo.
Just the mental picture of Robbie, flying through the air, 2-footed at somebody. Yeah.
As an aside, one of my favorite like group moments was when we were all at Burgatory and we got to share Romeo Parks' drop kick with Mondo for the first time.
No clue. Yeah. Like, what happened? It's like, oh, we gotta show you this footage.
Yeah. For those who don't know what we're talking about, we can laugh about it now. At the time, it was not funny. But if you just look up Romeo Parks Riverhounds kick, I'm sure it will come up. Yes. So, yeah, we're not going to play it here, but you can go back and look at it if you'd like. Guys, we talked to this was a hot topic again with the Rhode Island fans, but they are a team that does not like possession of the ball either. We ended up with 37.9% possession. So our theory about getting less than what I think it was 47% still holds true, where we've only lost one game so far when we've had less than 47% possession. So that's good.
Okay, so I do want to put that in a little bit of context, though. I think a big part of that is because they had to be pushing forward. It was 49-51 in the first half. Right. And so all of their possession came in the second half when we were up for 40 plus minutes by 2-0. And so, yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to give up possession when you're down by 2 goals? No. But I want to say the other thing with that is despite Rhode Island having a lot more possession, the Hounds never gave up and never looked like they couldn't stop scoring if they got the right shot.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. In previous years, we've seen cases where we get up and then we're making substitutions that are far more defensive. And it feels like we've somewhat learned that lesson. Like, let's not do that because the best defense is really a good offense. And there were plenty of times in the second half where EJ was just continuing to be a pest and trying to push the game and just nagging the guys on defense. And that's what you need. You can't give them tons of space because they're a good team. And when we're going to face a few more good teams down the stretch here, and they will punish you. So, yeah.
Well, and even those subs, I mean, I've talked about the subs. It's one of my themes, I think, recently, that I think Bob made good subs this time because despite in the 76th, 77th minute, whatever that was, when he brought in Kenny and Pierre, you're getting a bit more defensive with both of those substitutions, but you're putting players on the field and you have players on the field that can still go forward or step up into the midfield if needed, as opposed to just bringing on, well, maybe it's because you don't have more center backs to pack the box with, right? But you're bringing in guys that can play defensively, but can also go a little bit further forward. And I really liked seeing that.
Yeah. The announcer at the stadium said it was another sellout crowd. Did they say the 4th largest in Highmark history It didn't feel right based on what I
No,
saw on
I
the
mean, like,
camera.
if they might have said that, maybe we sold that many tickets, but that
Yeah.
was not the crowd that was there. I'm not saying this crowd was small, but it definitely was not. Like, I didn't look over at the grandstand, looking at our section, and be like, this feels like a sellout. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
all right. Didn't really feel like it. Maybe the cold kept people away, or maybe the people thought, the rain. But it was definitely did not look like a sellout. But hey, if we sold that many tickets, I'll count it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the official number is 5,619. I mean, you could see that it was not when there's over 5,000 people, the Paul Child stand is crammed.
Yeah.
There was open space, but it was still still looked like a pretty full night. And so good, sell the tickets.
Yeah. Agreed.
Can I get on a soapbox a little bit about some things that I do not like about this game?
Yeah.
Okay, one particular thing. We should never let an away team wear yellow in Highmark Stadium. There is no reason to let the away team wear black and yellow in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like, that makes no sense, to the point where multiple people I heard, like, you can tell they're more casual fans, thought we were the yellow team half this game until the goal happened. And they're like, why are we happy that the other team scored on us? Like, that's how obvious it, because like, if you think about it, like, you go to the game like, oh, the yellow team, that's us. Yep. And if you don't know the players, if you don't, you know what I mean? You don't know any better. If you look at the scoreboard, our logo in like background was yellow. Like, you can't tell. So, I'm not saying we always have to wear yellow at home, but we can't let the other team wear yellow like that. Yeah. That has to be like thought of. And maybe it's like a thing that only I care about, or like maybe, but I don't know.
No, but I think that's also like, that's part of the risk that they took with doing a black primary kit and then a white third kit and putting the yellow kit as the second kit, right? Like,
but you still get to shoot, like, so from my understanding, I think I was talking to Jesse about this. Like, we tell them what kit we're going to wear, and then they have to say what kit they're going to wear. So like, we get the choice being the home team. So like, if we know that their primary kit's yellow, we say, hey, we're wearing our yellow kit today. So they can't. Like, to me, that's like, should be, 1-on-1 right now. If you're playing that. I don't know who decides that. I don't know who decides what kits we wear, but like, let's keep that in mind. We don't want the other team wearing yellow.
I think my question is, have we worn those yellow and gray kits at home at all this season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's also like a little bit of, not pessimistic, but I also think it also has to deal with like what one we're trying to push as far as sales go. We haven't sold this many white kits yet. Let's put the white kits on. So when someone goes into the store after this game or during this game, they pick the kit they just watch the Hounds score 2 goals in. Like that. That's what I think is happening. There's like, oh, we have more of this kit available to sell. Let's just wear that kit. Which I get that, and I get when you have to make money, but like, you can't let an opposing team wear yellow at Highmark Stadium. You just can't.
Agreed.
And we've done it multiple times. Like the Crew game, we let Crew wear yellow. Like, obviously it turned out well, and this game turned out well. So, if you're superstitious,
maybe we should let everybody wear yellow.
Yeah,
but everybody wear yellow.
I'm not that superstitious. I think you can't let the opposing team wear yellow in Highmark Stadium. That's just.
No, I agree.
I can't remember what my other soapbox was. Oh, it was just the same old. Like, Blackstock came in. I'm like, oh, good. Or saw him on the lineup before that. I'm like, oh, good. Blackstock might be not injured now. Like, I don't know. So
yeah, the whole like, are they or not? Aren't they injured? Why are they not in the lineup conversation? Yeah. I mean, like I think I mentioned in the injury report, there were only 2 things listed. One was Pat Hogan with the red card. And the other was Etu being out on international duty. So if Blackstock was hurt at some point, it just wasn't made apparent to everybody. And why that continues to be kept a secret, I don't know. But it's definitely an annoyance.
Well, no one told him he had to keep it a secret, because he definitely told Steeler members. Because
did he?
we're to the point where we just reach out to the players and ask. Like, it's just like, hey, are you hurt? Like, what's going on? Why aren't you in the lineup? Because How else are we going to find out? Because the Riverhounds won't tell us. So if the official
Yeah.
organization's not going to, do the professional thing and put it in an actual
That's
press release,
ridiculous.
then I guess the fans have to just Instagram message players and ask them, which is ridiculous.
Do we know, is he okay now? Like, I know
Yeah.
he got minutes last night. Okay, great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, but can we also talk about that a little bit more? That there's no conversation from the team anywhere about Enoch Mushagalusha, but he's not listed as a current player anymore.
Nope.
But nothing. The rumor I've heard is that he went back to Hartford. I don't know how much stock to put in that. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm getting that third hand, but I'm just like, but okay, but yeah, he's clearly not a Pittsburgh player anymore. What is he? Where is he? And I get that there needs to be room for Jacqueson, but at least say something.
And he was also on loan, right? He wasn't a signed player. He was a loan player, I thought.
Was he?
Wait, no, I'm thinking of the guy we got from
no, he was on loan.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's the one we did like swapsies with. Like we
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
we sent Mike
to
the Shields.
Mike
yeah, we
to
sent
Shields. That's who it was,
the Shields over to him or them, and then and I maybe he's no longer with that team, so therefore he's no longer with our team. I don't know for sure, but maybe that is a situation. Only thing I can understand with that situation, since he is on loan, maybe that is a decision that's being made on his original club's side and not for the Riverhounds to release information about. Maybe that's for that club to release information, and maybe they did. I haven't been paying attention, so
still, it's still the conversation of what advantage is it to the Hounds to not disclose that information. I know we always have the conversation early in the preseason where we're bringing in air quotes trialists and they won't release the trialist's name. And we did get some justification from the team as to why they do that. And that is so that if the air quotes trialist does really well in a particular preseason game, then it's not as easy for MLS or some other USL team to come in and poach them because they don't exactly know who that player is. I get that. But at this point in the season, we know who's on the roster. Everyone knows who's on the roster. And for them to just vanish without any real, aside from protecting something that's personal to the player, just tell people what's going on. We all know who's supposed to be there. We all have the same questions, and in making it ambiguous, just it reduces trust in the system. And just be clear with people. That's all.
Yeah. There's literally nothing about Musha anywhere.
You just doing Google searches for
like nothing.
Okay.
Like nobody said anything.
I wouldn't doubt if he got dropped by his club, and that's why we don't have him anymore. I don't know that, but I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Guys, any other thoughts for this one before we sort of move on and look at what else is going on around the league?
This has been a great run of games. Like, I mean, I know like we've had some games where we're disappointed, especially last game with Indy, but like it honestly, what's our unbeaten streak right now? 10? If you would have told me that, during that scoreless streak of 6 games or 5 games or whatever, I would have thought you were crazy. So
I think what's interesting too is now after that win last night, it's been 10 games, but that 10 games is 5 wins and 5 draws, which means that for a while it felt like, we're unbeaten, but a lot of those are draws. So yes, it's unbeaten, but it's like, crappy unbeaten. We're now at the point where over the past 10 games, we're averaging 2 points a game. That's not too bad. Like that's kind of where we said we needed to be if we wanted to make a playoff push.
If it's the other way you look at that, how many of those 10 games are away games?
Oh, see, now you're making us go back and do work that I would do.
I didn't know if you already knew, because I don't know. I was just hoping someone already knew this. But you always had the tried and true, win at home, draw away.
Right.
And if it equals out to be winning at home and drawing away, even if it wasn't actually that way, like, cool. That's what we should be doing. And that's how you have a good record.
Wins at home against Oakland, Hartford.
I'm just talking about total of away games in that 10. Like, I don't care about if we actually did win.
How many were away? 1, 2, 3, 4.
So if we've won 5 games, that means we're 1 off of what we should be, which is 6
like
wins.
win at home and draw away.
Yeah, if we were just looking at points wise.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
we're like 2
not bad,
points
though.
off it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, considering that like we literally went 8 games and only scored 1 goal to now be in this position.
Yep.
It's not too bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. I had the conversation with my wife last night where she was like, "Oh, how'd they do?" And I was like, we're in the playoffs. And she was like, "Weren't they awful earlier?" And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they were.
A small caveat, though. We're
Yeah.
above the playoff line, not necessarily in the playoffs. We have not, but also the caveat is that tells you how easy it is to get into the playoffs this year. When it's the top 8 teams, it's hard not to get in the playoffs. We were just doing our damnedest not to get in the playoffs. So it's
that feels like a good segue into sort of looking here at the rest of the East. So after the win last night, the Hounds are now in 7th, which means that we are basically 2 spots clear of being outside the playoffs. Loudoun was knocked outside the playoffs. So now your top 8 are Louisville, who have officially clinched, the Battery, who are right behind them, only 3 points back, Tampa, who are 13 points back, and then you got a whole mess of teams that are in the 30s. So you have Detroit, Indy, Rhode Island, us, and Birmingham, with Loudoun and North Carolina really being, I mean, even Hartford are only a few points outside of that. So this is really going to be quite the race when you sort of look at things. And the good news is that we have a number of games against some of these teams. So we have a real opportunity to make some 6-point swings here that we're going to need to kind of maintain our position. The craziest thing is that we have 35 points, and 4th place, which is a home playoff spot, is 39 points. So we are literally a win and a draw away from being in the spot that Detroit is in right now. Granted, we do have a game in hand on basically everybody at this point. We have almost 2 on a couple of the teams. So it is still not in our it's not completely in our control. The best we can do is go out and beat the teams that we need to beat so that we're keeping them from getting points. But looking at the Eastern Conference, no other team in the past 5 games does not have a loss. We are the only team in the East that does not have a loss in the last 5 games. So we've said for years that the teams that seem to do the best in the playoffs are not the teams that have been the best teams all year. They're the teams that get hot at the right time. And we're kind of in a position where we have to get hot and stay hot. So it would just be very ironic if we actually make a playoff run this year, considering this is probably the worst regular season that we've had under Bob Lilly so far. Guys, any thoughts on sort of the table after everything sort of shook out after last night? Anything sort of jump out at you?
I like what I see here. One of the things that I think is really worth just putting on the table with what's left is we are ahead of Birmingham. We are ahead of Loudoun currently. We play both of those teams and they play each other. And so wins for us against them is massive because one or both of those teams will drop points against each other as well. And that puts us in a much more comfortable position. The other thing is, we've got some challenging games. We've still got Charleston. We've still got Tampa Bay. But the way we've been playing, are those games that are winnable? 100%. Those are games that are winnable right now. And everybody from Detroit through North Carolina, I didn't look at Hartford actually, so I can't talk about them. But everybody in there plays other teams in the East numerous times. So this table is going to look, I think, vastly different in 5-6 weeks than it looks right now. So for the Hounds, it's go out and pick up as many points as possible. You talked about the 2 points in per game in the past 10 games. And I think it was right before that, right at the beginning of that stretch, that's the thing I was talking about, that to get into the playoffs, we need to average 2 points a game. We're doing that right now. we averaged 2 points a game for these next 6 games. That puts us up to 47 points, which is pretty competitive historically in the East for getting into the playoffs.
Yeah. Agreed. So as we mentioned, we have 6 games left. We got Tampa, then it's back and forth. So we'll go away, then home, away, then home. Tampa away, Birmingham at home, Miami away, which Miami have now officially been eliminated from playoff contention. It didn't happen until this weekend, but they're now officially out. Charleston at home, which will be a very interesting one. Loudoun away, and then El Paso at home. How confident are you guys that we can keep up the 3 games at home or 3 points at home and 1 point away? And if we're able to do that, that gives us 12 points over the next 6. If I set the over under at 12 points over the next 6, Steve, are you taking the over or the under in that case? I know it's an even number, but
I'm taking the over.
You think we're going to get more than 12?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Josh?
I mean, yeah, same. I mean, if you look at it, like it might be swapped a little bit here. So, like, for example, we play Miami away. I think we win that one. Charleston at home. Maybe we don't win that one. I do think it will be a good matchup, though. It's going to be fun. But I still have Charleston as my favorite to actually take the Players' Shield this year. So I'm like hoping they're able to knock out Louisville. Louisville's never gotten the Players' Shield. I didn't know this. Maybe I know this and like I just didn't realize it. But like they've won championships, but they've never won the Players' Shield ever. And that makes me so happy that I don't want that to change. So I'm really rooting for Charleston to topple them, or someone in the West. I don't know what the West is looking like right now as far as points goes, but it'd be great if Louisville can't get it yet again. At least then we have one trophy they don't have. So it's going to be interesting. But there's a lot of teams that are very beatable in this lineup, and I'm not saying, I'm feeling pretty comfortable that we're going to make the playoffs, but I'm definitely feeling better now than I have in the last forever this season.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think if I'm looking at those games, the only ones that I'm really not concerned about, but the ones that I think are more likely to be draws are going to be Tampa away and Charleston at home. But Steve, to your point, I think the way that we've been playing, we seem to have found some kind of formula where we're able to battle out points. I would almost love to play Louisville before the season was over, just to kind of see where we stand as it relates to them. Charleston will be the closest proxy because, like I said, I think Charleston's only 3 points back on Louisville. But I think the rest of those games are winnable. So even if we win 4 of those games and draw 1 or 2 of them, that still puts us above 12 points, which that's great for that stretch and considering where we were. Yeah. So,
but I also want to point out Bob has some sort of like voodoo magic in Tampa. Like, I don't know what he does, but when we go to Tampa, more often than not, the Hounds come away with the better result. And do I expect us to go out there and blow them out? No, but do I see a chance for us to win a game in Tampa? I think that can happen, right? Like, I am pretty confident that, right? Like, I think I agree with Josh, right? Like, I think we have to beat Birmingham. We have to beat Loudoun. Those are massive wins for us in the playoffs. So we have to go out and we have to get those. I think Miami, that's just a team we're going to go and manhandle, right? And so that's 9 points. Are you going to tell me that we're only going to get 3 points from the other 3 games? I don't think so, right? I think we get a win and at least a draw on those other 3 games. And so that puts me at 13 points. Easy decision for me.
Yeah, agreed. That is what we think. Let us know what you think. Gentlemen, any other closing thoughts on this one before we get out of here?
We saw a bald eagle during tailgate this week. Yeah, we're sitting out, hanging out at tailgate, and then a bald eagle just flew over the tailgate. And I was like, holy crap, don't see that often.
That's cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Nice.
Steve, any final thoughts from you that can match bald eagle or better?
I'm going to go put some heat on my lower back because I'm getting old and it hurts after kayaking multiple days this week.
Sounds good. I might actually do the same after that. Let's go. So,
hey, Josh, you want to do something to your lower back
That's
during
right,
the party?
I walked around the zoo today, so I'm just tired in general.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate it. All of you who have been watching live and commenting, we obviously really appreciate that as well. Make sure that you subscribe to the show so that you get all of the latest Hounds content before we announce it to anybody else. We do appreciate it. And like I said, we got tons more Hounds content coming to you all week. We're going to be talking about Tampa, hopefully get some player interviews, do a prediction show, all of that. So lots to come. We will absolutely be talking to you all very, very soon.
Later.
See ya.